Welcome to the Agilists Aspire and Achieve in Your Agile Career video podcast series. This series is all about helping you grow, thrive, and make an impact in your career and the community with an Agile mindset. Whether you're just starting out or you're an experienced practitioner, we're here to bring you inspiring stories, actionable advice, and meaningful conversations that will help you navigate and excel in your Agile career, meeting some amazing mentors along the way. Get ready to aspire, achieve, and thrive in the next step in your journey.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whenever you're watching this, and welcome to our first episode of the Aspire and Achieve as an Agilist podcast series. I am your host, Emily Lint, and I am here with Allison Pollard.
Hi.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm so excited that we're finally getting to record this. We've talked about it for a while.
Yeah. She's been one of my partners in crime in creating this series, and really has been pushing me to look at internal change agents. And we've both been pushing each other on diversity and inclusion. How do we make sure that we're getting a lot of different voices here to talk about Agile careers and really careers in general? That was something that you were like, hey, it's not just Scrum Masters and product owners. You can be an Agilist and be, a CEO, we would hope, right? That's what we want.
Let's get there. Let's do that.
Let's get there. And we got some people on the docket that are COOs, and people who are leading in finance departments and director level positions. So I'm really excited to speak with them about all right, how do you, quote unquote, how do you do both? But again, that's, we see them as two separate things, and maybe we shouldn't anymore.
Yeah. It's interesting how things have progressed or evolved over time, where Agile started to be respected as its own distinct thing, that there were specific Scrum Master roles, that Agile coach roles emerged, that there became this career track that you could take. And then now, whatever the shift is that we're currently seeing, I don't know what to call it. I think we're still in the middle of it, as companies are changing their hiring or their priorities. But it is this, where is Agile headed? What's coming after Agile? And what does this mean for careers, for people that have developed their coaching skills, their facilitation skills, that are really good at working with teams on how they deliver?
Yeah, love it. And I think mentoring goes into some of that. I feel like a good amount of that. Again, why we wanted to start this series, but why I really wanted to partner with you, Allison, on it as a part of Women in Agile. So you are the program director of the mentoring program, correct?
I am, yes. I'm the creator of it, really.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, well, that's why I was like, I think I know your title, but I don't know the full thing. So
yeah. Official title is program director. But I am the one that actually, taught to Leslie Morse years ago, as president. And, she had mentioned that there was always an interest in having mentoring across the Women in Agile community, but we didn't really know what that meant. And I, at the time, was talking to Leslie because I wanted her to mentor me a little bit. And get some advice from her, because she has some really great experience in the same kind of field that I was in. And so it was from that conversation that I thought, oh my gosh, if I'm already getting the benefits of mentoring within the WIA community, how do I help others to be able to connect to the people that could be amazing mentors for them? Because they might not know as many people in Women in Agile, or it might not be as easy for them to reach out and make that ask. So that's where we started developing the program through, initially a survey of Women in Agile members to find out what were they looking for, what were they interested in, and then running some experiments with actually clients that I was working with at the time that I was consulting with, that they had a lot of women leaders that were in various mentoring programs. And I wanted to know, why would they mentor? What is it that they're getting from that? What do they wish that they had in a program? And that really helped shape, what we have today.
All right. So, tell me, how did you start and find your Agile career? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I actually think that Agile found me. I had gotten started in my career actually in project management. I had worked at a small website development company, and it was more traditional project management. I had certain documents that I had to write, and then I had to send them to clients to get them to sign off. They had payment, they were supposed to give us at certain times in order to get their website fully developed. But being at a small company, I appreciated I got to see the full life cycle. And I got to be very, very engaged, like working directly with the clients, the people that, wanted their website. Here are the photos, here's the text, here's what they're trying to sell. And then I also got to work with our developers, directly. I say directly. They were in India and I'm here in the United States. So directly was actually emails and instant messenger. But I got to be that person going between customer and development. It was really exciting. But when I left there, and I was pretty burned out, because if you can imagine having to be in an office all day, to be available to these customers, and then having to be online late at night trying to talk to my development team. It was just too many hours. I couldn't sustain it. So when I left, I knew I loved project management. I would love to stay in software. And I got hired in at a medium-sized company. And it was the weirdest interview process. They asked me some very wacky questions that I thought they are wasting my time. It turns out they were just trying to see how I would react when you get weird questions like, why is a tennis ball fuzzy? That for me to be able to...
Sorry, I have ADHD. Like now my brain's going, why is it
you're like, why is that?
I would have loved that interview. I'd be like,
like,
please ask me weird questions.
Like, it was like, apparently, like, because I didn't get super rattled and I didn't get super mad and I didn't, I don't know, school them on suddenly why tennis balls are fuzzy and like talk to them like they're idiots or anything. They're like, oh, okay, like you seem like someone we could work with, and like we're trying this agile thing. We'd like you to act like a Scrum Master. And to them, it really meant like be like a servant leader, help facilitate some things. They actually did not refer to anything else from Scrum.
Of course. Yeah.
So it was really more about like certain like values and like characteristics, not the like real accountabilities as we think of them today. But that was my entryway. That was where I first started hearing about Agile. And I was just so excited. I got to work with actual developers in an office, that I could like walk over to their desk and have conversations. I very much leaned into like using the whiteboard and going much lighter weight in my communication, not these like big long documents with tons of diagrams and everything, but really getting to appreciate the creativity and the talent, of the team there. So after this like exposure to some of the lingo, I thought, well, I like this. I'd love to know more. Let me go take a training class. And so then I actually took my like certified Scrum Master training and realized, oh, okay, like some of this makes sense. Some of it I've kind of sort of been doing. And then, oh my goodness, there are definitely parts of this that I had no idea.
Yeah.
And like, we weren't doing that at all. And that really then took me on the journey of like, so now how can I get more practice with the rest of this? How can I use the other parts of Scrum? Because they sound really beneficial.
Okay, great. So we talked a little bit about, and thank you for sharing about your journey and stuff. We've actually had very similar things. I think that's exactly what I said to Leslie when it was like, how did you find Agile? And I was like, Agile found me.
Yeah.
It's like a meet cute that we all have with Agile. So we talked a little bit about this, and so I wanted to get your take on it a little bit more. What have you observed about the role of career development in Agile over the years?
I think it's evolved. Again, a number of us back in the day, it seems like, Agile found us, that we were in organizations where that was starting to get talked about, or maybe used in like different pockets. And so we then, found our way into training, either sponsored by our company or on our own, and then looked at, so how do I continue to apply the rest of this? How do I get more practice with it? How do I start to see the real benefits of it? And then what does it mean for me to like go even further with this and find other parts of Agile practices to address the other needs that I see? And I think now there are a number of folks that are looking at either like, how do I transition into a different industry like technology, that Agile might be one of the like requirements in a way, or it's like one of the first things that they're seeing as, necessary to make that job transition. Or, like I mentioned a moment ago, like suddenly Agile became its own career path. That like, what did it mean to be an Agilist? Well, it probably meant that you were in some kind of a like Scrum Master or product owner role. Maybe you move into a Agile coach, product coach, technical coach, enterprise coach. There's so many different things that became available as organizations wanted to, increase their agility. They were making more investments in who are the people that have the knowledge, that have the experience, that are able to work with us internally and help us on that journey so that we can get faster, we can get safer, we can have happier customers, we can have all these wonderful things.
Yeah, great. And I think we talked a bit about how like now that's kind of like people have started to, and I saw it too, and I was honestly a big advocate for it of like, hey, we need to like have more of these roles. We need to have Agile HR that's like taking on like these roles in these categories and have a career development like pipeline for people. But now it's also like we see that pipeline, we see that like, starting as Scrum Master and then maybe transitioning to release train engineer or chief Scrum Master, or you go to the product route, and you have all this trajectory. And we'll talk about some of those things in our series. But like, there's also this element of that I see is happening in the industry where they want Agilists in other roles too, like in program management and in risk and finance, being an analyst and stuff like that, and still having those Agile skills, where I feel like we've almost done, like we started out and then we wanted our own ladder so that we didn't have to do a project ladder. We did our own ladder, but now like we're kind of integrating the ladders together and being like, no, you can be a Scrum Master and then do project management and then do product ownership. Like the skills involved, especially when you're talking about like the values and being a servant leader, like we should have those skills be able to transition into different parts of the organization.
Yeah, for sure. And I, like you said, it's like we started to like kind of separate ourselves out of some of that like delivery responsibility, some of those like really core project, like internal kind of roles, because it felt like that was the way to have the bigger impact of how can I really use my skills, my knowledge to have the most impact on the organization and help us get through certain roadblocks, certain challenges, to get us to where we're all kind of like using the same processes or like using the same techniques. And that now it's gotten to be like so commonplace that Agile is, of course, the way that our teams are organized, and that we have teams, and of course, we have certain planning horizons and things like this, that the need for that like extra set of people on the outside helping to support the people in those roles is lessened, and that it does go back into now the impact is through perhaps program management or portfolio level strategy. Where is someone becoming that like chief product officer, and that they are able to like work at that C level and say, here are the things that we're hearing from our customers and seeing in our competition. This is where we need to be taking our products, and really focusing on that approach of like, how is Agile supporting us in creating these opportunities for us to continue to grow?
Love it. So I'm sure we'll have people in the comments, as we like on YouTube and we're talking to different people. We mentioned before that you're the Women in Agile creator and program director, but what is the Women in Agile mentorship program? Just tell me a bit about the program itself.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique program. I think so many people hear about mentoring and they automatically think about that mentor-mentee relationship. And that's what we heard initially when we did our surveys, of like, I want that one-on-one relationship. I want it to be long-term. I want someone I can really trust, that I can confide in, that is going to be able to support me, and give me some resources that I don't otherwise know about. So at the crux of it, there is a one-on-one relationship. We are matching mentors, people that have basically like signed up and said, hey, I have some experience. I would like to help some other folks. And matching them with mentees that have applied in our program. But the thing that I think is really special, is that we actually focus on the mentor experience itself. So these are women who are internal leaders. They are navigating their own careers within Agile enterprises. So they might be in those director positions. They might be the senior Scrum Masters within their company. They could be developers. They could be product managers. They could be, we have someone from like cybersecurity, like expert. So it's amazing that, again, as Agile is like really proliferated into organizations, there's Agile expertise within a very large variety of roles. And so having women who, again, like they on a daily basis are having to navigate, how do I manage all these like delivery timelines and the internal politics of my company, and making sure that I'm supporting the humans that are doing the work. How do we work with finance? How do we work with HR? How do we work with all these like different areas across the business itself? They are giving of their time, they're giving of their knowledge, they're giving of their expertise. And we said, we want to actually add value for you. We want you to be able to connect with your peers across different companies, across different industries, that, they might not be able to go to as many like local meetups or conferences as a number of us in the consulting space are able to. So having an opportunity for them to really like find one another and connect, share ideas, support each other at more of that peer level. They can actually function kind of like a mastermind through our monthly events that we have for the mentors, which is really cool. And then of course, what are the skills, or like what are the tools that we do know about, that we've been learning, from running cycle after cycle, that we can share with the mentors and say, okay, we've noticed like experienced mentors at the very start of that like relationship one-on-one with their mentee, they're going to have a pretty big conversation about, you might think of it as like chartering or designing the alliance, or just kind of like working agreements. Like when things go wrong, how do we want to handle it? Because I've also seen that things that seem as simple and straightforward, of someone's not available and needs to like reschedule at the last minute. How do you handle that? How do you communicate that? Because we are talking about two women who are complete strangers, providing time to one another to try to have these conversations. And the trust can be broken pretty easily when you're not super clear on, how do we want to handle it when it's not going well? Or how do we want to handle it when life happens and scheduling becomes super difficult, or there's just other disruptions going on that this minute, this day is not the one that's going to work for me. Can we find a different one? And so again, it's like, what are some of the experiences from people that have been mentors for a while? What are they learning about this, and how do we help share it with the other mentors?
Wonderful. Great. I think that's actually what we wanted to focus on today, is like lessons learned, expectations, because there's people who have, they ask me, they come to like from the Agile careers perspective, from women in Agile, just being Agilists, they come to me and they're like, how do I get mentored? And like, what would it look like? How do I ask people for this? Like, what would be the expectations? And I think there was some things that were really interesting when we talked around, like, yeah, we've actually like changed the way that we do this. And and I think one thing that I wanted to kind of address with you, because it's a bit of a hot topic, so you're welcome to like be like, all right, probably not for this episode, but we're going to talk in the series about internal versus external. You know,
Mm,
there's people who've asked me, how do I go from being an internal coach to being an external coach? Because I am
mm-hmm.
an external consultant. You are as well.
Yes.
And then there's the other way of people who are external consultants who are like, well, why can't I speak to internal
Mm-hmm.
mentees? You know, why can't I work with them? And we're going to talk a bit about the divide and like the transition, right? And why you would choose one or the other. But help walk me through why you've decided, or there's been a decision of like not having external consultants be mentors. And can they be mentees?
Um, we've had some consultants be mentees,
Hmm.
and like we're like about to we have like applications open right now for the next cycle. I'm not
Okay.
entirely sure that we're gonna like continue to
Support that.
prioritize
Okay.
the way that we have been, that we had
Okay.
some consultants as mentees. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Um, all right, so the big thing, us being external consultants, especially, I'm in more of that like entrepreneurial, position, right? Like now I'm at the point where like I'm selling classes and it's me delivering them. I'm
Mhm.
selling my coaching and consulting services. The thing that can happen when I am mentoring someone is the conflict of interest. And it's not
Mhm.
because I'm even like intending to sell. It's that part of my role, just the things that I work on are stuff that people can buy. I actually noticed this some time back. I was in fact mentoring someone outside of our program with Women in Agile. And I was telling her, I was like, I'm so excited about this new class that we're developing. It's a class on like change management, and it's for Agilists, and like what are the things from change management we often ignore or skip over, and that this is really useful for like say project management offices in particular. And I was just casually sharing that as like the update of like, hey, how's it going, or like how was your day, of like, oh, I'm like
Yeah.
working on this class, it's really cool. And she goes, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, my organization might be really interested in that. And that's where it was like, oh, okay, that's
Oh,
how that happens, right? Like it's
yeah.
me potentially just talking about like, here are the things I happen to be working on, and someone goes, my company might be interested in that, or I would want to sign up for that. I didn't know I was giving you a sales pitch. I did not intend to give you a sales pitch. And suddenly I have a lead, as we would say, that now it could get super weird of either, oh, great. So who would I need to talk to at your organization? Like who would be the decision maker? Who has the like authority to spend that kind of money? Now it's adding a different role between me and my mentee of like,
Yeah.
are you now like coaching me on how I sell into your organization? Are you the decision maker yourself? Where again, maybe you're going to talk about like buying an individual seat into my class. So now I'm like your instructor, but then still kind of your like mentor. Like it gets super weird super fast.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think a lot
that
of
we
people
we
like,
like
yeah.
partly it's like we're not prepared for all of that. Like as a program, like we've run it like 3 times now. We've grown quite a bit, but like we knew early on of like we are not in a position to be able to like handle the conflict of interest stuff that can come up super fast, and like how to advise on it or like how to avoid it or any of that. But then we realized there was this other like hidden benefit. And again, it's that when you go to conferences or you go to meetups, the speakers are often consultants, because again, we're trying to sell stuff. We're trying to like let people know who we are and what we do. And
You
it
know,
can
or
be,
we've developed like confidence and time,
we've developed
to feel like we
like
can represent that, you know?
there's that. There's
Yeah.
also like when you're working at larger consulting companies,
Hmm.
as I did previously, like you have more support for it.
Mm.
That a lot of the skills that are needed to be a speaker are part of your day job. Like they become consulting skills.
Yeah.
That you get used to. How do I present myself in front of an audience? How do I tell certain stories? How do I make this compelling? How do I develop like a model or like a framework of like this is what we do and how we do it and how it works, and it's so amazing and you should buy it. um, We usually don't do the sales pitch at the Agile conferences, but again, like it's so easy to find external consultants to be mentors because we tend to be very visible in the Agile community. What's much harder or like less recognized is probably the better way of saying it, are the people who, again, like their daily role is navigating an organization and trying to make it better. And that they, again, might not be able to meet as easily with their peers, from different companies, or they aren't able to have like those more like intimate conversations about what is it like being a woman navigating the workplace, that as an external consultant, when I come in, like I get a little bit more authority. Like I actually had a client years ago that I started working, her management brought me in, I started working with her and her team. And she's like, one, I feel like part of your role as a consultant is to like evaluate me and my job. And I went, yep, actually it is. But then two, she's like, it feels like you're able to tell management the things that I've been trying to tell them, but they listen to you and they're going to say yes to you. And I went, yeah, you're also right.
Yeah.
That when we're external consultants, like we come in with a different stance and like a different entry point that makes it easier in some ways for us to affect change. And that's why I have like such a deep respect for people that have stayed in the internal, that have gone to the internal roles, that are in the internal roles, that they're doing the hard work in a different manner, but it's very impactful, and it likely sticks better than what we sometimes see when the consultants leave.
Yeah, great. So I think I want to get to like some of the lessons learned and expectations. Thank you for addressing that concern and kind of like going through that. Because I think people don't, external consultants, me being included in that, but doing more of like, to your point, of partnering with other, companies and things. We forget sometimes the pressure, and then that different relationships require, respect on different levels of like, I don't want to, if we're going to get into this mentor relationship, then, that means that I'm not trying to sell you things. You are in no requirement to buy stuff from me or to find positions for me. That was a great example that you used of like, you had somebody, you were like, oh man, does this mean like, does this change things now? Like, would this impact our overall like goals and things like that? Like, what if I don't get this job? Are you going to feel like that I failed you in some way? Like, I'm not sure, it adds a different dynamic.
Yeah. Well, and again, like that, like recognition of like your intention is different from your impact.
Yeah.
And that again, like when that conflict of interest comes up, if I then was like, oh, wow, you want to take that class? You're my like world favorite mentee. I'll give you a free seat in the class, right? That it feels very generous. And again, it feels like we'll just, continue this same relationship, but it shows up in a different environment, and it's going to have an impact on like that class and the other students and all this other stuff. And it's like, you can't undo that conflict of interest. Like you can't pretend that it's not there. And that's why I also love like the coaching profession has a code of ethics. And like that was part of what informed our program when we thought about the conflict of interest policy. It's that like when this stuff comes up, like one, there's certain parts of it that we can just try to avoid in how we design the program. And then there's the other element of when other parts of conflicts of interest come up, how do you talk about it openly and explicitly? And then how do we, decide what's the best way forward from that point?
Great. Okay, so our episode today, again, is focused on these lessons learned, expectations for mentorship. So, and we've already gone into quite a few items there from your program. And so people can kind of take that into their own programs, or to maybe start their own programs, think about the Women in Agile program as well. So of things you have observed. So what's kind of like, let me see how I want to state this question. Because my initial like statement of it is like, what's your first nugget of advice? And like we've already gotten to several of them, right? But how do we kind of get to that, maybe that initial ask for advice, and from going from that initial ask to goal setting in this environment?
That's that's a big part of what's going to help you get the most bang for the buck, which is probably like the worst idiom I could use. Like what's going to make mentorship really, really positive and helpful for someone is being able to transition from I'm asking you for advice on a monthly or maybe every like couple of weeks basis, and I bring you like the issue of the day, or like as my colleague Paul Tevis calls it, it's the monster of the week. That from like TV shows, that it's like, okay, and today's villain is this, and how do we get rid of that villain, and then next week it'll be something else. When you can actually take a step back, and this is something that our mentors help with too, like what's important about that particular issue, and like is there a pattern around this, and like what are you actually hoping to achieve over time? Our program is 6 months long, so that's a lot of time to be able to like really dig in, practice, apply, use different resources and get some feedback from your mentor. And if you can get clear up front, ideally, like, gosh, when you fill out your application, the more specific you can be on where you're trying to go, what you're trying to accomplish would be amazing. That it enables the mentor to be more creative and be more thoughtful, even between the meetings, of here's some articles, or here's a book, or some videos that might be useful to you, or I was able to like take some time and put more thought into what is that advice that I would provide. I see the showing up like on a meeting, like, so now we're both here, and now you ask your mentor, like, here's what's going on, what should I do? You've had no prep. You had no idea what I was about to bring to you. And so you're put on the spot as the mentor, like, give me your best thinking and do it fast, right? It's kind of nerve-wracking. Now, I know a number of our mentors do bring in like coaching skills to help the mentee find some of their own answers and their own approaches. But again, if you can really articulate, where are you hoping to be in 6 months from now? Like, where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Like what do you want to be known for? Or like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, is there a particular milestone in your career that you're aiming at? That can be really useful to, again, give shape of like, what's me like the 6 month arc of what we're trying to do. And then, every month or like every week, we see how it like connects back and helps like move us forward towards that.
Great. So I love that. And it kind of goes to my next question. So I'm glad this is flowing, right? It's our goal, which is like, how do you even know when you're ready for mentorship or you're ready to like be a mentor? Because I think people like initially think, well, I want to go in this direction, or I want to do this thing. Will mentorship help me? Am I ready for that? Right. And then, for somebody that's like, I want to impact the community. I want to maybe share some of the things I've been doing, or maybe I just want to give back or hear from other people. And I want to mentor, I want to kind of work on that skill set. How do I know I'm ready?
It's a great question. And I'm actually thinking about like some of the mentors that we've had the last couple of years. They admitted to us, they're like, I am shocked that you said yes, that I could be a mentor. And we're like, wait, what? Like you applied. Like you let us know that you exist. And like we looked at your information. We're like, yeah. That it's so funny that, a number of us will have like confidence issues, professionally in our careers, and that some of the mentors, they had also applied as mentees. So you can apply, like both.
We're both. Yeah.
But often it was like a coworker or like someone in their community that said, hey, there's this program, you should apply as a mentor. And they're like, I'll do it, but like, I don't think I'll get picked. And then sure enough, like, again, we review their application. We go, yeah, oh my God, like we see something in you that we think you could be really helpful, that you've got experience and you've got, some areas that you're able to support mentees in, like certain kinds of goals that you could do that. And we would love to have you in our program. They're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? And I love that, because sometimes we do need that, like reflection back to say, you've been there, you've done it, you're doing it. Like there are things that you've already accomplished and like obstacles that you've already faced. And if you can, help someone else through that, that is huge, right? How do we reach back and make things easier for other women, for other people? You can always share something of like, this week, here's what I'm working on and what I'm trying to accomplish. And someone goes, wow, either I was facing that recently, that was super beneficial to me, or that might be coming up on the horizon. So now I know that's a thing and it exists. And I have some ideas of like what to do when it does show up for me. Or wow, I'll be sure to like tell other people about that. Cause like, I don't know if it'll ever happen for me, but maybe someone else in my network. So I find that mentors will sometimes like downplay their own achievements. But if you've been in the Agile space and been using Agile in your job for a couple of years, especially if you've been at multiple companies or if you've worked with different teams, if you've transitioned into it from something else, if you've been in it from like day one, like as long as you've been there and done that for some amount of time, you are in a position that you could mentor someone else. The mentee side, like how do you know when you're ready to be a mentee, like to be able to like work with a mentor? It's like a different set of challenges. Because I think mentees are quicker to recognize, oh my gosh, I really want to phone a friend right now. And I don't have that friend in my network. And again, like we see a lot of imposter syndrome, in our applications that women are, very open with us in saying, I'm struggling with maybe again, like how do I use Agile in my current job or in my current workplace? But then also like, how do I just exist as a woman in my company? And, Emily, you and I were talking before we pressed record about like performance feedback, like the performance review and how women might get more feedback around like their behaviors or their voice or their tone of voice. And men
data proven.
Data proven. The evidence is there. Google it yourself, please. But we know these biases exist, and we know in general these biases exist. Not every company is aware to what degree the biases exist within their own company and how it might be showing up and shaping the employee experience. But that's again part of the reason why, like when we connect one woman with another woman and having someone else say it's not just you, like that's so reaffirming of like, wow, okay, I thought I really was like the world's biggest fraud. I really thought I was like, completely incompetent. Like, no, you're getting certain signals, you're getting certain feedback, and it's something that tends to happen to women. And then possibly hearing your mentor like share her own story around it. You're like, okay, so I don't have to rage quit. I don't have to like, melt into a puddle. There are ways that I can, protect myself. There are ways that I can maybe show up a little bit differently, develop certain skills, communication, that I can set myself apart and start to thrive. And there are ideas of how to make that environment better for all people.
Wonderful.
So it's really interesting to see like what makes a mentee ready. The bigger challenge is actually, can you make the 6-month commitment and put in the time to meet regularly, but then also the time to do the work in between those meetings?
Yeah, and I think that doing the work thing has definitely been something that I've run up against. And with people, they're like, I want to get this job, I want to get this thing, I want to go to the next, setup. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to need to take a step back. And especially as Agilists, like there's some internal work that needs to happen around servant leadership and why you might feel the need to be control and, command, right? Like command and control all the time. Why, and also with all the pressures that we're working through day to day, there's no quick, easy fix.
Right.
For a lot of those. And so sometimes as a mentor, needing to take a step back. I also I wanted to, just as because we've touched on most of your points, so I wanted to make sure we got to all of those. But as we were kind of talking, I was thinking about mentor relationships that I've had, and mentee relationships that I've had, and I wanted to see if there was anything surprising to you about things that actually impact mentorship that you might not think about, either as a mentor, as a mentee. Like what are some of the things that you're like, oh man, that was different? And I'll share an experience that I was thinking about in my head. Because I feel like mentors or mentees can sometimes look for the big goal plans, and stuff like that, and the huge exercises. I really want to get creative. I really want to facilitate a crazy conversation, and I want you to dig deep. And then mentors are like, man, I have to come up with that, and I have to really think on the spot on all of these big impactful decisions that you're having to make. But when I think about mentor relationships that I've had, it's the little things. I remember to this day a conversation that I had with my mentor where she hit me with just, if you were in a conference room and you got invited to a conference room, sit at the table. Don't sit around the corners. Don't stand. Even if the table's full, pull up a chair. Ask people to scoot over. Pull up a chair. You're in the room. Be in the room.
Yeah.
Be at the table. And we had a discussion around laying down a mattress and what that means, which is when you say, yeah, I'm not really as experienced with technical solution management, but this is my opinion, right? That's, you're laying down a mattress so that when you get rejected, it doesn't hit as hard, or you're trying to lay it down so that you've given room and cushion. No, just state your opinion. And so it's stuff like that that has always really resonated with me, and that I continue to think about when I'm oh shoot, I almost laid down a mattress, or I did. I'm gonna revise my statement right now.
Yeah, that idea of laying down the mattress, I've never heard it put that way before, but it makes so much sense. And because I think about how many of us would say, I'm an Agile coach, I'm not technical. And it for me especially, it's such a weird, am I technical? Am I not technical? Depending on the day, I could argue both sides
depending
of that.
on the technology, what does that mean?
I have my computer science bachelor's degree. Thank you. Earned it, right?
Yeah.
I've been working with teams. I have opinions on, their technical practices. I've listened to some amazing, speakers and authors on, the technical side of things. I stay up on the technology. I'm just not hands-on in it. My code wars level is so low. I almost never do code katas and continue practice my programming or anything.
But not a lot of technical solution managers do
programming. Yeah. I went into project management, but yeah, but if I introduce myself and say, and I'm not technical, I've already discredited myself as a voice to pay attention to. That it's reinforcing oh, okay, well then her opinion doesn't matter on all these other things. And that's not what I want to do at all. So I really try to discourage people from including that in their intro. Please don't say that you're not technical. You might be able to say I come from the operations side, I come from business, I come from product, I come from whatever, and then just bite your tongue when it's so are you technical? Be what are you talking about? I'm here with you.
What do you need me to know?
Exactly. What do you need me to know?
What do you have a question about?
You want me to start writing your code for you? I think there might be a bigger challenge ahead, if that's where we are. I have other skills and other knowledge that could get us out of that trap, perhaps.
Actually,
But
that's
yeah,
kind of funny because that's like what I'll say to people if they like to, they're like, "Oh, are you technical?" And be like, "Listen, I can write code, but if we get to the point to where I'm writing code, we have bigger problems."
yes,
And
yes.
people like giggle and laugh. I never really, I thought of that, like I have that in my back pocket, as a response. And I never really thought of that as being like my kind of response to like, are you technical? It was a funny thing for me to say so that I didn't have to be like, well, no, I'm not going to code stuff. Be like, I can learn about anything that we can do it. However, if I'm doing it, we got bigger problems. So I think we're coming up to the end of our discussion here. Really appreciate all your time, all the wisdom. And we could go on forever. But what are you doing for your own professional growth right now?
It's a great question. I actually told myself, I think about a year ago, like stop signing up for training classes. Because I recognize like the thing that I really need to focus on in my professional growth is applying the stuff that I've learned. That it's so easy to get in the habit of like, well, what's the latest certification out there? Or like, what's the fun training class or something that might give me access to like a different tool. And I did a number of those and I found I was like, I'm not getting as much like bang for the buck again, like my terrible idiom. I'm not really getting the benefits of this. Like I have another tool to use and am I using it? Nope. I don't really have the opportunity to use it right now. I'm not in that position. Like, great. So that was something in the toolbox that doesn't get pulled out. That instead it really is more of like, how do I continue to further myself as a leader and kind of like as a manager in some ways and really apply a lot of the advice and like learnings that I've been sharing with other people and that I've accumulated over time. So my own professional growth is more about like, how am I communicating with people so that I can be curious, I can be connected, but I'm also very clear. And for me, it's the like balance of all three things that it's the balance of all three that can be the challenge.
Wonderful. Great. Yeah. So we're thinking about this as like this next step in the mentorship program and allowing folks to come on here and be mentored. So what's your final wisdom of the listeners as they go through the rest of this podcast and really listen to our amazing new mentors for them?
Oh gosh, I kind of have like chills. Like I'm just so excited that we have so many mentors that'll be on the podcast series and for listeners to like learn from them. I think my final wisdom is like savor it. These are voices that we don't often hear from, we don't often see. I'm so excited that these mentors like opted in. They said like, I'm ready to take that step. I'm ready to put my voice out there in a bigger way, and that there is so much we can learn from what they've been doing, what they've experienced, what they're seeing, what they're hearing. So enjoy the series. Find the nuggets. There will be many, many nuggets of wisdom, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, thank you again so much for your time, Allison. So much appreciated, and glad we're starting off this series and getting that running. I feel like we need to have a sign off, for all the rest of these episodes. We just had this, all right, thank you for another episode of the Women in Agile podcast, right? But like, maybe thinking about, all right, everybody, continue to aspire and achieve. Or something. We'll figure it out. I think I'm almost thinking about like Bailey Sarian, where like she had the for like her murder series intro, that she just was like, I just did that on the fly, and then like that became the theme song. It was shana 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 shana.
That's hilarious.
We'll figure that out. Maybe that'll be on the task list somewhere. For getting a good sign up. But otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Agilists, Aspire and Achieve in Your Career. We hope you found inspiration and practical tips to elevate your Agile journey. Remember, growth doesn't happen alone. So consider exploring the Women in Agile Mentorship program and/or follow the Agile Careers MPO on LinkedIn to see more content geared towards advancing your careers. A huge thank you to our amazing sponsors, Scrum.org, for their continued support in empowering Agile professionals and creating opportunities for career advancement. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what topics you'd love to see next. Keep aspiring, keep achieving, and continue thriving in your career.